I've often heard, and I've heard other buyers say this too, is like, some people want to pull, some people don't want to pull, but then I've seen adjustments in appraisals where, because maybe it was an in-ground pool and the landscaping of the house, it was brought more up to a beautiful standard, that there was an adjustment made for a pool.
Oh no, we will. We'll make an adjustment for those things. It's just not equal to or over the cost of putting that thing in. That's what a lot of people, they put a lot of emphasis on what the cost of something is.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily translate into contributory value.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Tim here with the TMA Connection. It's your local podcast that is focusing on life, community, and real estate, and people that are making a difference in the lives of others. And today we got a great guy in the house that's going to put a lot of our minds at ease, educate us, because today we are talking about appraisals. And in this market, with home values and with people putting in offers that are over asking price and trying to price out homes, we're going to get some questions answered today to just shed a little bit of light on the appraisal process, determining value, common myths, misconceptions, and we're even going to ask the great old question: what is a bedroom? But we'll hold that to the end. So
okay, there you go. Little drama.
That's right. That's right. Hook them in here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Dominic Corson with Corson Appraisals.
There you go.
Welcome to the show, brother.
I'm glad to be here, Tim.
This is awesome. At any time in my real estate career where I have a question about appraisals and determining value and stuff like that, you're the man that I call. So
appreciate that.
Yeah, lots of wisdom. So you've been around here in Harford County for a long time. For the people that don't know who you are, give everybody a little bit of a background about who Dominic Corson is.
Okay. Well, I've been in real estate, actually coming up in January will be 40 years. So I started very young.
Okay.
Very young. And I started out as a real estate agent. So I sold for 2.5 years before I became an appraiser. So 1984 became an agent, 86 became an appraiser. So I've been doing this a long time, 37 years as an appraiser. I've probably done easily 14,000 appraisals.
Wow.
So I've seen everything.
So when people say the appraiser doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh, they might still be right.
They might still be right.
We're not perfect. Okay? Yeah. I'm never going to claim that.
Yeah. Oh, well, awesome. And so let's start with the fundamental of like exactly what approach is being taken when you're doing an appraisal. What are the key factors that you're kind of looking at? Give everybody a little bit of a kind of just a grassroots understanding of what your job is to do.
Right. So first thing I just want to clarify, we're not home inspectors.
Okay.
All right. So we're only going to report on what's readily observable.
Okay.
Okay. That's the term that we use. That's what FHA uses, the term readily observable. We're not a home inspector. We're not tearing everything apart. We're not going to go up on the roof. We're going to assume that certain things are in working order.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing, just to put that out there, that the scope of work is not as a home inspector. But what we're looking at is what contributes to value. Mm-hmm. So location, quality of construction, square footage, and other features, finished basements, garages, things like that. We're looking at all those things. Physical condition of the property itself.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that most appraisers are looking for.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are some factors that people think that, you've probably talked to a lot of people. What are some factors that people think do provide value that maybe don't actually provide a whole lot of value with a house?
Well, I think it really comes down to things that are over-improved for the area.
Okay.
For your local market area.
Okay.
That's maybe the biggest thing. I just had a case recently where it was actually a 3-story house. It was a very nice house.
Okay.
It had a 3rd floor. It had a bonus room, had a little efficiency kitchen and a bathroom. It really added almost no value because the house itself below already had over 4,000 square feet.
Okay.
So that extra square footage, it didn't really add a whole lot.
Okay.
So I think the homeowner, sometimes they overvalue that. The other thing they do is they overvalue land. Oh, I have surplus land. I have 2 acres and my neighbor has 1 acre.
Okay.
So therefore my house should be worth so much more.
Yeah.
And really it doesn't add that much more.
Okay.
So that's one thing those are a couple of things I think that homeowners think add to value that really don't add that much to value.
Interesting.
So it really depends on where you fit in the market, if you're over improved or not. Swimming pools are another one.
Right.
Right. I mean, they might cost, I don't know, $75,000, $100,000. I don't know. It just depends on what scale of it.
Sure.
Maybe it only adds 10, 15, 20,000, depending on where you are. I mean, there's some pools that could actually detract from the value if it takes up the whole space of the backyard and you have no recreation area.
Okay.
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, I've often heard, and I've heard other buyers say this too, is like, some people want a pool, some people don't want a pool, but then I've seen adjustments in appraisals where, because maybe it was an in-ground pool and the landscaping of the house, it was brought more up to a beautiful standard, that there was an adjustment made for a pool.
Oh no, we will. We'll make an adjustment for those things. It's just not equal to or over the cost of putting that thing in. That's what a lot of people, they put a lot of emphasis on what the cost of something is.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily translate into contributory value.
Gotcha. Because there's two different approaches, and primarily you're looking at a sales comparable approach versus the
cost approach.
Thank you.
So we usually don't do a cost approach unless it's very young, under a year. I think Fannie Mae and FHA don't even require it unless it's under a year.
Okay.
So anything over that, I might go up to 5 years, because the reason is it's difficult to measure depreciation, physical depreciation. So over time, your property degrades. And so it's hard to measure that sometimes. And so the main approach that we use is a sales comparison approach, because the average buyer, they're not looking at cost. They're just comparing it to other properties they're looking at.
Sure.
So the cost approach really, it can be a useful tool, especially in unique properties.
Yes.
When you don't have a lot of comparable sales, sometimes you can use a cost approach, and it can be useful that way, definitely.
Yeah, well, that's what that was actually leading into my next question, is that, I recently had a listing where it was a beautiful home, and there's just nothing out there like it. I mean, so what do you do as an appraiser when you do have that unique property that does kind of stand out amongst anything that's even in that area or even beyond? How do you go about determining value on something that you can't compare? It's difficult to compare because you got to find comparables.
Right. Right. The lenders want us to use at least 3 sales.
Okay.
Sometimes you just find one good one and hang your hat on that, and the other 2 are kind of window dressing, honestly.
Okay.
Just you put more weight into one of the comps over another one. But so you have to use all your different techniques and tools in your toolbox. So you've got 3 approaches to value: income approach, cost approach, and sales comparison approach.
Okay.
So obviously, when you have a unique property, you might have to use another technique. And so a cost approach is definitely a good way to do it. But there's market value in that as well, or a market approach into that, insofar as you still have to value the land. So I usually start with valuing the land.
Okay.
Do that first. Then I'll use what's called the Marshall and Swift Cost Handbook. And they have regional costs all over the country, and so they send us a quarterly update on what stuff costs in this area. And so they have pictures of different quality houses, and you kind of have to rate the quality of your house. And then it has different costs per square foot for that, and you just use a calculation. And then you also have to estimate depreciation, because let's just say the house is 20 years old. Well, if you think a house might be 60 years old. In other words, economic life of a house is estimated to be 50 to 60 years old before you have to completely renovate it.
Okay.
That's just the theory behind the cost approach. So we just go with that. So if you have a 20-year-old house, well, then you have 33% depreciation.
Okay.
Right? So you value the cost new minus the physical depreciation plus the land, and that's the result of your cost approach. Okay. So that helps. But then within the depreciation, there's different kinds. There's physical, functional, and external. So I know I'm kind of getting in the weeds here on appraisals, but perfect example would be the house I just talked about with the over improvement at the 3rd floor. That's what we call functional obsolescence. It's an over improvement. The in-ground pool. Okay, yeah, it costs $100,000 to put it. I'm just picking a number just for purposes, but maybe it only contributes $25,000 in contributory value. So the charge of physical or functional obsolescence is $75,000. That's a minus.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So that's why the cost approach is not the perfect approach, but to your point about a unique property, it's a starting point. Because people aren't, it's the theory of substitution. People aren't going to pay for more than what it would cost to build new.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
that makes sense.
That kind of sets the upper bar of what somebody would pay for that house.
Yeah.
So that's why it can be a useful tool.
Yeah.
But typically we're just going to use a sales comparison.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then even with the unique property, we're going to use comps, but it depends on the type of property. So a lot of times you might have a contemporary style house that's a little bit unusual. But once you get in it, sometimes it still functions as a 2-story or a rancher. So then you just got to find other ranchers or other 2-stories that are similar functionally.
Right.
Other than the external appearance of it.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how you have to do it.
Yeah. Do you find when you have that unique property and you're making these justifications within your report for the bank that the banks pretty much go with what you said after you've given that explanation?
That's the thing. You just have to show your logic behind what you did and why you did it.
Yeah.
Then that's it. And they're usually pretty good about it.
Right.
You know, they might ask for an extra comp or two, or they might give us permission to go over a year or farther away in distance to find another comparable sale that might have only 2 bedrooms or whatever it is your issue is.
Okay.
So we'll do that sometimes too. But usually they're pretty good as long as you explain what you did and why you did it.
Yeah.
They're okay with it.
And I think too that for our relationship as the real estate agent who's listing the house and the appraiser, is so important for us to come out to meet the appraiser to give those justifications of how you came up with the value that you did, because there is an objective subjectivity, I guess you could say, right? You know, that you're using numbers, you're using facts, but there is an opinion on value. And so if you can see where I was coming from with that, maybe that can actually help. And I've heard, you know, some real estate agents said, well, the appraiser doesn't want to meet me, you know, that, and I think that's a disservice. And I've never, not once in 7 or 8 years, have come up against an appraiser that said, no, I don't want to see the comps that you pulled. No, I don't want to see the updates that the seller has done to the house. You know?
Oh, I welcome it.
Yeah, I mean, shouldn't you? I mean, I haven't met anybody. I've heard, but I haven't actually met anybody that has been like, no, you know?
Yeah, well, I teach CE classes to real estate agents on valuation, and so I've taught hundreds, maybe thousands of agents. And every once in a while, not every once in a while, quite often, agents will tell me that the appraiser rejects it out of hand. They'll give them the comps and say, I don't need that. They just give it back, which first of all is kind of rude.
Yeah.
If you don't want them, just put them in your file and leave.
Is that an ego thing? Like,
I think it is a little arrogant. Yeah, I do, because again, we're not perfect, and you know this multiple list system's not perfect. Depends on how you do a search.
Right.
You definitely can miss things.
Yes.
You definitely can.
Yeah.
So I'm totally open to it. Plus, you may have been in these other comparable sales, and you're going to have information about them that I can't get except looking at the pictures on multiple lists, and we know those pictures can be deceiving sometimes.
Sure.
So I need all the information I can get. So I'm totally good with having agents give me comps.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it's your job to do that. I mean, I was trained that way.
Right.
When I was an agent, you meet the appraiser at the property, you have comparable sales, and you say, this is how we came up with this listing price.
Right. Yeah.
No problem. That's what you should do. That's your job.
That's what I believe, and that's what we do. But not everybody does that, you know?
No, they don't.
I mean, yeah, but we're not throwing anybody under the bus either.
No. I think most appraisers are okay. They're open to it.
Yeah. You know, when I took a pricing strategies class with lady Sandy Smith. Yeah. Sandy Smith is amazing.
Super smart.
Super smart, super intelligent, has a really good perspective on things, and she we had like 5 groups of like 4 people, and we all were given the same property, and we had to come up with what the value was. So all of us were working in our small groups, and then we had to get up and justify where we came. And wouldn't you know that all 4 groups came up with all 4 different appraisals.
Oh, and that doesn't shock me.
And the lesson is, you couldn't determine the value, and bring in 3 appraisers to a house, and you're not going to get the same exact 3 amounts.
Never.
Speak to that a little bit.
Well, was there a range? Were they kind of close within a certain?
Some of them were like, you know,
way
in the high 500s and then way in the low 500s. You know,
okay.
It's a
wow,
big disparaging thing, you know.
Yeah. So when I do corporate relocation work, if you don't know what that is, when somebody gets transferred by their company, they have a deal where they'll buy the property.
Okay.
And then they'll take care of selling it.
Right.
They always send at least 2 appraisers out.
Okay.
And so the folks who are doing relocation appraisals, they're pretty good. They're experienced and they know what they're doing. So I always go up against other appraisers. We never come in at the same number.
Yes.
But in the relocation world, as long as you're within a 5% spread, you're good.
Okay.
And if you're out of that spread, then they'll get a third opinion. But it's very rare. I mean, as long as I've been doing it, I don't know that I've ever come in at the same number as another appraiser.
Yeah. Well, but just because there's so many variables that you're looking at in an appraisal. Look at an appraisal report, and it's very thorough.
Right. So when I do an appraisal for a bank, I have to give a single number because that's what they want.
Uh-huh.
Now, when I do a pre-sale, pre-listing, or some other kind of assignment where the owner just wants to know what it's worth, I'll give them a single number. It might be a weighted average, whatever comps I have. Mm-hmm. But I'm also going to do a range where I'm going to say the most probable sale price is between X and Y.
Right.
Because giving a single number implies an accuracy that doesn't exist. Like, I'm not that good that I can say that's the number.
Yes.
No more, no less. That's ridiculous.
Right.
Nobody's that good. But within the range, I think the odds are I'm going to be in there.
Right.
And I usually am.
Yeah.
I mean, I did an analysis of my work of those types of assignments last year, and I was probably within a 3.5% spread on average. So that's pretty good in this market. That's I think I'm pretty happy with that.
Right.
Because it's very unpredictable. Buyers have different motivations than sellers, and so you never really know where it's going to land once you put it on the market.
Yeah.
You just never know. But as long as I can get within a 5% spread, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we're working with sellers, the biggest thing that we try to focus on is say price this at market. If you go for the needle in the haystack and try to price your property really high, chances are you're probably not going to find that one person that's willing to pay, because people are just so educated with home values based off of things that they find online. But if you price it at market value, you have a better shot of getting that higher number than you would if you try to price it high. And then on the flip side of that is if you do unfortunately price it too low, the market's going to correct it.
That's it. So you never make a mistake, really, at least in this market condition right now.
Yeah.
So I've been doing this a long time. So normal marketing time usually is 90 to 120 days. For a long time.
Yeah.
It's been like that. And now, the last few years, it's days.
Right.
So, yeah, you're right. To your point, as long as you can price it close to market value, you don't have to worry about even if you make a mistake and price it a little bit low, because you'll have multiple offers, they'll bid it up, and it'll bring it up to whatever market value is, or even over market value.
Right. Yeah.
But also, you talked about overpricing. That definitely is a problem. In this market, you do not want to get too greedy and overprice it because, as you said, buyers aren't stupid.
Yeah.
And they're not going to overpay. And so what happens is that listing just sits on the market, and all of a sudden it gets stigmatized.
Yes.
Because people are like, okay,
what's
it's
wrong
been
with
on the
that
market.
house?
Yeah, it's been on the market for 2 weeks. What's wrong with it? It's kind of ridiculous, but
I was joking with a buyer yesterday. It was like, it went on the market on Friday and they don't have any offers. What's wrong with that house?
Yeah. But I mean, usually I'm telling you, all those relocation appraisals I did, they always gave us a 120-day marketing time period.
Okay.
In other words, what is it going to take to sell within that time period?
Okay.
Because that was normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times properties took a year.
Right.
Especially out in the northern part of Harford County or Baltimore County, the more rural properties, they took forever. Farms, now everything goes really fast.
Yeah.
But so you kind of have to recalibrate to the market. This is what the expectations are now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then. You've been in the business for close to 40 years. Like you said, your 40th anniversary is coming up. Most of the years being an appraiser, 37. You've seen buyers markets, you've seen sellers markets, you've seen ups, you've seen downs, you saw the market crash in 2008. Like, we have been on this climb for quite a while now with it being a seller's market. Low inventory, there's just not a whole lot out there. The interest rates have gone up. People might be staying in their house because they don't want to get away from their 2 to 3% interest rate. All those things. What do you see that needs to happen, or what's going to happen? We don't have a crystal ball, but this can't last forever. Things are always in cycles. What's going to make this market change into a buyer's market?
you're going to have more inventory.
Yeah. And how do, I mean,
and so right now the economy, you know, it's kind of transitional. We don't really know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some talk about maybe, you know, a recession or this sort of thing. I don't really know. I have no idea. But let's just say the last crash that we had back in '08, you had a lot of unemployment in those. You had a couple of things. You had unemployment going on, so people were losing their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
People are not going to buy a house when they're losing their jobs. But what happens is you combine that with the really crazy financing that we had.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot of no-doc, low-doc loans, interest-only loans. Things were ballooning, and so people were just walking away from their house because they couldn't afford the payments. You had a lot of short sales in those days. So the banks had a glut of properties that they were owning that they had to put on the market. So that really affected the values of properties, because all of a sudden you have all this inventory and no buyers because they have no job. If you have no job, you're not going to buy a house. So, so it took forever to sell houses in those days. So it's all a function of supply and demand. So right now, I don't really see unemployment that big of an issue. So I think it's going to be like this for a while.
For a while.
Yeah. And just, you know, you look at who's going to possibly be a seller would be like elderly. You know, we have an aging population, but a lot of them are aging in place now. They're staying home. They're not going into one of these assisted living communities.
Right.
They're going to stay in the house as long as possible now.
Yeah.
You're just seeing it more and more. You know, just like that Evamar project out there. Now, they had a different issue, I think. I don't want to get into that, but just in general, those types of projects are going down nationally. They're actually not as popular as they used to be.
Right.
Because people older folks are just staying home as long as they can. So you have those people who aren't selling, so there's no inventory. You know, costs of construction's high, so you're not building as many houses.
Right.
Because the cost is so high. So the inventory is still really low. And just, you talked about people with lower interest rates. They don't want to give up that lower interest rate to get into a higher interest rate.
Right.
So people are staying put.
Right.
So I think we're just going to be like this for a while. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't see a change until, like I said, if there's some economic collapse where people start losing their jobs and then there's foreclosures. But that takes years to kind of filter through.
Right, right. I mean, you would have thought that something like COVID and shutting down everything and people staying in their house could have been a detriment to the real estate industry, and it was the exact opposite.
It was crazy,
you know.
Yeah, but again, it's unintended consequences. You never know what's going to happen when you have these shutdowns and things. Mm-hmm. It makes people think, okay, well, you shut everybody down. They have to work from home.
Yeah,
you have the technology now to do that. So people are thinking, hey, you know what? I don't really have to live in this city.
Mm-hmm.
I can live on a farm. And actually, I did a lot of farm properties. They were popular the last few years. People were just, I can just live out in the country.
Right.
I can live where I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had a mass exodus of people out of cities into suburban areas. And so that's what contributed a lot also to the home prices being what they were.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are going to live where they want to live.
Yeah.
You know.
It's interesting, you know. Yeah. It's very
it's
interesting
always
to
changing.
see.
Just demographically, it's changing.
You know, buyers that are kind of on the fence and not wanting to get into it because they're like, it's just, you know, too crazy right now. It's like, well, is it going to get crazier? I don't know.
Well, to me, just knowing what I know over the years, the best time to buy is when you're ready to buy.
Right. At an affordable mortgage payment.
Yeah.
You know.
But the thing is, okay, we're saying that interest rates are high at 7%, which kind of is a joke for people like me because when I started in '84, interest rates were 15%.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
It's all about perspective, right?
Yeah,
we're still below the national average over the last 40, 50 years.
Oh, yeah. And I do estate work. So I go back in time and I look at old deeds and I see what these old folks paid for their house and what their interest rate was. And it was all 6, 7%. I mean, we just had a fluke that went down to 2.5%, 3%. That was an historical anomaly.
Right.
6, 7% range is very normal.
Kind of normal.
It's not prohibitive to buying a house. It really isn't.
Yeah.
So the market just has to adjust to it, I think.
Gotcha.
And I think they're getting there.
Gotcha.
I think they're getting, yeah.
All right. Well, so I put a question out on Facebook. Say I'm bringing in an appraiser, and I, you know, I think the biggest question that people have is what brings them the most value? What are things that they can look at in their house as far as updates and stuff like that? So we're not going to play a game, but I just want to get an idea of like, okay, we have two houses and one has this and one has that. How much value does the one house have over the other? And I know this is really broad, general,
Go for it. Have fun with it.
I mean, it's really depends on the house, the location, and a lot of other variables.
Yep.
But just generally speaking, this is what people really want to know.
I'll play along. Let's do it.
All right. So, two houses are the same.
Mm-hmm.
One has a finished basement. One does not have a finished basement. How do you adjust for value there?
Well, there are finished basements and there's finished basements. In other words, I've seen some real amateur jobs. Okay. Like really bad drywall seams.
Hairy homeowner.
Yes.
Yeah.
A do-it-yourselfer. I did one recently. The finishing was great. It was a rancher, really nice, but it was chopped up into 4 small rooms. It was awful.
Okay.
I mean, what can you do with these rooms?
Okay.
I mean, 3 of them didn't even have
functional obsolescence.
You're already learning.
I'm learning.
Oh my gosh, I'm getting through to you.
Awesome.
You can't really have a party or a game room or a club room because they were all just small, chopped up 12 by 12 rooms instead of have one big open family room.
Yeah.
So what value did that have?
Right.
I mean, it had some value, but not nearly as much as one that was open. So it sometimes just depends on how it's configured.
Okay. So a nice finished basement.
Yeah.
And an unfinished basement.
Yeah.
What would you adjust for that?
I think most appraisers would probably do like maybe $20 a square foot.
Okay. So it comes down to the square footage of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Difference in full baths. So one house has two full baths. Another house has 3 full baths.
Depends on this quality of the house.
Dang it, Dominic. This is just general.
I'm setting myself up for a range. Okay.
I got you. I'm just playing. Go ahead.
I know. It could be $5,000 to $10,000.
Okay. 5,000 to 10,000, depending on, again.
If it's a higher end house, it's going to be more, obviously. So that's where the range comes in.
Okay. So like a townhouse or a single family house, that's going to be two totally different.
Correct.
Differences in value.
Yeah.
Okay. How about, so you said 5,000 to 10,000 for a full bath. How about a half bath? Just half that?
Well, yeah. Well, it's really 3 pieces, right? So it's almost, you want to break it into thirds in a way.
Okay. But
it depends what you already have. So if you already have, say, 2.5 baths, and let's back up a second. Start from the beginning. Full bath versus half bath. If a full bath is $5,000, I may make a $3,000 or $3,500 adjustment for a powder room.
Okay.
Probably something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Garages. House that has a garage, house that doesn't have a garage, or a house that has a 2-car garage versus a 1-car garage. How do you go about adjusting for that?
Yeah, I think, and I've seen other appraisers work, so I'm kind of giving you a consensus.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not just my opinion; it's what I've seen other appraisers do, and I think you'd probably say for a 2-car garage, it might have a value of say $15,000.
Okay.
And a 1-car would be $7,500.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it depends on the price range of the house. If you have a 2-car garage and it's a, $800,000 neighborhood, really, if you only have 2-car garage, it's probably an inadequacy. Most of those buyers are looking for that third car.
Third car, yeah.
They really are. So it could be a functional obsolescence. It could be an under improvement.
Yeah. I'm going to be saying that word in my sleep tonight.
And
3 bedrooms versus 4 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms versus 5 bedrooms, 2 versus 3. How do you make the difference with bedrooms?
Depends on the market expectations, like what neighborhood you're in.
Okay.
And I really don't even want to use a 3-bedroom house to compare it to a 4-bedroom house because sometimes it can be a big difference. So I really just want to compare 4 bedrooms to 4 bedrooms.
Okay.
I really want to try to do that.
Yeah.
And it changes so much. And so what I would do is a paired sales analysis. So I'd say, okay, here's what the 4 bedrooms are going for, whatever, $400,000. And then I look at the 3-bedroom sales that all things being equal, they're going for $375 or whatever. So then we know, okay, maybe the bedroom difference could be $25,000 difference. It might only be $5,000 or $10,000 if it's a townhouse.
Okay.
So I really take them one at a time. I'm not trying to dodge the question.
No.
But I really take one neighborhood at a time, one house at a time.
Gotcha.
And just do a paired sales analysis.
Okay.
To see what the market's doing.
Okay.
And I take it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. New roof versus old roof. Somebody put a brand new roof in within the past couple of years. Do you give a value for that?
Well, you don't really get extra points for having a roof. I mean, that's
everybody needs one.
That's right. So it's an expectation. So it's just that if you have a leaky roof, then it's gonna be a problem. And also it depends on what you're comparing it to. You know, if all my other comparable sales, like I just came from a house that had a 20-year-old roof, original roof, it's starting to leak a little bit. Do I make an adjustment for that? Well, it depends. When I get my comps, if they all have 20-year-old roofs, then maybe I don't make an adjustment because it's all baked into their prices.
Okay.
So it kind of depends. And also, I don't really make a roof adjustment per se. When I look at the condition of the property, I'm looking at the totality of it. So maybe that house that has an old roof has a renovated kitchen and bathroom.
Okay.
But just never got to the roof yet.
Yes.
And one of my comparable sales has a new roof, but it's got a dated kitchen and bathroom. So when I do my adjustments for condition, I look at the totality of all of it.
Interesting.
I don't single it out.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. We talked about land. Do solar panels bring value to a house?
I always say that the person who benefits from solar panels is the second owner.
Okay.
Because the first owner puts out a lot of money.
Yeah.
Even with the credits. And it takes a long time to get your money back.
Okay.
It depends on where you are.
Yeah.
I don't think we're in an area where the utility rates are that high. You know, there are some places where they're really high, and so and plus they get enough sun. We don't get a lot of sunny days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it takes longer to recoup your money.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'm not anti-solar. I mean, I actually have an AGA designation. It's a national designation, accredited green appraiser.
Okay.
So I'm not anti any of this stuff. It's just here locally, I'm not really sure that it adds that much. And I don't know how many times I've done paired sales analysis where I've compared solar houses to non-solar houses. There's virtually no difference. I don't know how many times I've interviewed the listing agent. I'll say, hey, you know, I see you sold this house, had solar panels. Do you think you got any kind of premium for it? No.
Yeah.
And if the panels are on the front of the house, sometimes it kind of detracts from the look of the house.
Good point.
And so people don't like that.
Okay.
But the second owner, they benefit from it because, man, all of a sudden their meters are going backwards.
Right.
And they didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Really. So it just depends on how long you're going to own that property.
Okay.
So that's with a lot of improvements is your timeline.
Right.
You know, should I renovate my kitchen or renovate my bath? Well, you know, if you're going to be there, if you're going to sell in 2 more years, that would be dumb.
Right. Right.
Like my wife and I just totally renovated our first floor, kitchen, powder room, flooring, everything, right? Costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's an over improvement.
Right.
But I'm going to be there for at least 15 more years.
Right. I find it funny where sellers are now, they're going to sell, so they want to put updates in. It's like, why didn't you do that from the very beginning? And maybe you didn't have the money or whatever, but you know, to do the updates so that you can enjoy it.
That's the thing.
You know.
You got to enjoy your house.
Right.
I mean, that's part of it. So real estate is not a pure investment where you're looking for return on your money.
Right.
You're just not.
Yeah.
You got to live there. You got to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay. But it also depends on your time horizon. So if you're going to be there for a long time, do whatever you want. Put in that brand new patio, enjoy it, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be planning to move in the next couple of years, hang tight. Don't do any of that stuff. I mean, the only thing that really you can get a good bang for your buck as far as improving is cosmetic. You know, painting, just general cleanup, flooring.
Yes.
You know, maybe trimming back the shrubbery in the front. It's just like things like that. They're almost free.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we're telling sellers. The best bang for your buck to bring you the most value in selling your house and getting that top dollar amount that you want is, you know, new carpet or new flooring or painting the house.
Absolutely.
You will get your money back plus some. Anything else bigger than that, you're not getting that full amount.
Yeah, and just declutter. Just declutter your house.
Right.
People have a lot of junk.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You accumulate a lot of stuff over the years, you know?
And buyers don't want to see that when they're doing their tour through your house.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It makes it look smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're now at that point in the podcast where we're dropping the biggest question that everybody wants to know, because if you Google this next question, you will not get the same answer over and over and over again. So, what is, for once and for all, Dominic Corson right here, right now, is going to educate us all. What is a bedroom?
That's a lot of pressure.
Well, you know, when this goes viral on all social media platforms, we're going to get millions and millions of views.
I can't wait for the hate mail, the hate comments.
There's just so much debate out there, and people that think it's this and people think it's that. Need a closet, need window egress, yada yada. You know, it's like, what is a bedroom?
All right, so you have to have. There are a couple of criteria. This is not my opinion. It's based off International Residential Code.
Okay.
And you can Google International Residential Code and read it.
Okay.
But just to break it down in its essential parts, it has to have at least 70 square feet. Okay. At least one of the walls has to be continuous 7 feet long.
Okay.
Okay. So you basically have to be able to put a bed and a nightstand in there. It has to be 7 feet tall. The ceiling has to be 7 feet tall. You have to have an ingress and an egress, so you have to be able to get out of the house.
Okay.
Okay. Those are some of the basics. It has to be heated.
Yes.
You don't have to have air conditioning, but it has to be
have
heated.
Air conditioning. Okay.
You have to be heated.
Yeah.
And then when you look at another question is the basement bedroom.
Yeah.
All right.
So
is
many
that a
people
bedroom?
listing their homes as a bedroom and a basement, and you can't get out that little tiny window at the top.
No. So all those criteria still matter, but one of the things with the basement bedroom is that window, it has to be no higher than 44 inches high. Because you have to be able to get to it. The house I just came from, they totally finished the basement. They put a little in-law suite in there.
Mm-hmm.
Great, looks wonderful. But that room, I'm not calling it a bedroom because it's got one of these little windows. You know, it's like 1 foot by 2 foot windows.
Right.
You know, you can't fit a human being through there.
Yeah.
So it gives you some natural light, which is great, but it's not officially a bedroom.
Right. Okay.
It's just a room. To me, it's just a room.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So
that's basically it.
So basically, this room that doesn't have a closet, is it a bedroom or not a bedroom? It has all those other criteria.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
You forgot about the closet.
Because International Residential Code said you don't have to have a closet to be called a bedroom.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to just tell you this though. Remember, I always use the term, market expectations.
Uh-huh.
The buyer expects to have a closet in that room.
Okay.
So,
but when you're appraising it,
it could be.
It could be a bedroom.
It could be a bedroom.
Yeah.
I do a lot of old farms.
Sure.
These little Victorians and farmhouses.
Homes built 1900.
They may not have a closet.
Yeah.
I'm calling it a bedroom.
Yes.
It's a bedroom.
Okay.
Okay. So it just depends on the situation, right? So, like when you have to be careful when you do an addition, at least in Hartford County, and you're on a well and septic, okay, you have to make sure that the septic system will accommodate 4 bedrooms. Let's just say you have a 3-bedroom house and you would put an addition on, and making it a 4-bedroom, you got to get a permit.
Yeah.
And
that's when you got to call the health department and do your homework before you say, hey, we're going to buy this house and we're going to put on an additional bedroom.
Yeah. And some people will try to game it and they won't put a closet in the drawings.
Uh-huh.
They weren't born yesterday.
Yeah.
They know after they get the approval, people are going to put a closet in.
Right.
All right. So they're aware of this.
Okay.
So you just have to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just recap.
Okay.
You don't need a closet to be called a bedroom.
Correct.
But buyers generally expect to have a closet in that room to be called a bedroom.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That is a fair assessment.
That's the best I can do for you.
I think that is probably the number one question that is so misunderstood I
get calls from agents all the time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely one of the big ones.
Yeah. Is there any question that I didn't ask you that you really get a lot of that would really bring value to the people that are listening?
Well, I don't know if this is a question, but there are a couple of things that agents should know about square footage.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they'll rely on the SStat, the state assessment website, and that's not always correct.
Okay.
Those numbers are not always correct, so you have to be really careful about that. As of April 1st of last year, appraisers have to follow ANSI guidelines, American National Standard Institute guidelines for measuring houses. Now, I've always used ANSI guidelines, but now they've standardized it because they've had discrepancies with other appraisers and other data sources on what the size of these properties are. So a couple of things to be aware of is that open family room or open foyer area that goes 2 floors up, that section is not counted as gross living area.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important. When we're doing our listings and stuff like that, we try to get a general estimate of what the actual square footage is to make sure that it's pretty darn close to what the tax record says.
Yeah, and see, the tax man counts that in those calculations.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful about that. And then also, I know buyers, if I don't say something when I'm at the property, I'm going to get a call. In other words, when people have split foyers and split levels and they have finished space down there, they'll say, hey, you didn't count my bedroom or you didn't count my bathroom.
Okay.
Well, I did, but we have to separate it out between above grade and below grade living area.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it still has contributory value, but we have to segregate the two out. So when you see an appraisal, you'll see one line where it says above grade living area and room count, whatever that is, and then below area, finished space. So we count it. It's just counted in a different section.
Okay.
So that's very common with split foyers and split levels because any portion of that level that's below grade, it's counted as below grade.
Which is lesser in value than your upper? Or?
Most of the time it is.
Yeah.
The upper
because like you have a colonial and then you have a split, bi-level, split foyer type home.
Correct.
The colonial is going to have more value.
Absolutely.
In that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Absolutely. So are we talking to homeowners or are we talking to real estate agents? Who are we talking to today?
We're just talking to anybody that's going to listen to me. We can clip things too. So we can clip little segments out and we can put it out to an agent or we can put it out to homeowners.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. Because I know a lot of times, especially nowadays, agents have problems with appraisers coming in at the contract price.
Okay.
You're aware of that, aren't you, Tim?
Yes.
Happens.
It does happen. So how does that happen? Why does that happen?
Well, sometimes buyers get crazy.
Okay.
And they just get excited and they want to get that house.
Yeah.
And they know they're in competition and they just go for it.
Yeah.
And it's okay to go for it to a certain extent.
Right.
But then as the appraiser, we might have to rein it in based on whatever the data tells us.
Right.
So we have to use our judgment on that. So I'd say a lot of times the deal still goes through. Mm-hmm. Usually people just renegotiate the sale price and it all works out. The buyer and seller work it out. At least in this market, it seems to be that way. Mm-hmm.
But you guys aren't out there to kill the deals either.
It's the last thing we want to do. I got to tell you, it's the last thing we want to do because when I hit that send button, I know somebody's going to complain.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to get a call from the buyer's agent or the listing agent. Hey, why did you come in under?
Yeah.
So appraisers, we just want to keep our head down, no controversy. We don't want it, but sometimes it just has to happen.
Right.
And another thing is, we're only required to use 3 sales in our appraisals, but anytime I come in under a contract price, I'm using 4, 5, 6 comps.
Okay.
And if all those sales are adjusting under the sale price, then we know we have a problem. And usually I'll call the agent and say, hey, I'm looking for comps. I'm struggling here a little bit. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes they meet me at the property and they already give me comps. That's great. But sometimes they don't. And so I'll pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm struggling. You got anything? Yeah. And then I try to consider what they have, put it in the sales comparison grid, make the adjustments and see where it comes in.
Right.
And I do the best I can.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is what it is.
Right, right.
But I know sometimes agents want to appeal the appraisal. It's very difficult to appeal the appraisal.
Unless there's like a glaring, they missed something
there's got to be
huge.
A mistake.
Like, there's got to be an objective mistake to it.
Yes.
You know.
And sometimes one of the problems is that the appraiser does not have what we call geographic competence because they're working for a mortgage company who is using an appraisal management company. Mm-hmm. And those guys randomly select an appraiser from their pool of approved appraisers. And they might be from PG County or Howard County, and they're coming to Harford County, and they're clueless.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you're doing appraisals today, there aren't really a whole lot of sales in the neighborhood. And so you have to go outside the neighborhood for your comps. Mm-hmm. And you have to know what neighborhoods are superior to others because there are differences.
Yes.
And so that's where the geographic competence comes in. So that's why it's really important to meet the appraiser at the property, to maybe educate the appraiser and say, hey, look, I know there aren't really a whole lot of sales in the neighborhood. Here's one similar neighborhood. Here's good comp. You have to be able to educate the appraiser.
Right.
It's your job. And try to do that before he sends in the work, because once he sends it in, it's really hard for him to change his mind because then he looks like he made a mistake.
Sure.
That's not cool.
Does anybody want to admit that they made a mistake?
Nobody wants that. So you want to help them save a little face ahead of time.
Yeah.
And really try to do the best you can before he sends that appraisal in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, so this has been great. I every time we get to have a conversation about value and appraisals and stuff like that, I just learn something new. And you have a lot of great wisdom. You're a great person. You're very easy to connect with.
Appreciate that.
And just always there to help. You're providing education through continuing education with real estate agents. You're just a good guy, Dom.
Oh man, thank you. I don't know what to say. No accounting for good taste.
Well, very good. Well, if people, so you do work for the bank. You don't work for the bank. You do appraisals for lenders through the AMC. But you also, do you do other appraisals for other things outside of the banks?
Oh, absolutely. So actually, right now, I'd say only 25% of my business comes from lenders.
Okay. So what's the other 75% coming from?
A lot of it's attorney work.
Okay.
So I do a lot of estates.
Okay.
A lot of divorces. A lot of those.
Okay.
And expert testimony. There can be litigation, neighbor against neighbor. I do all kinds of weird stuff that happens out there. And so attorneys call me and I'll do expert testimony in court. I'll do that. I do stuff just for homeowners, just want to know what it's worth so they can sell it. Sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes people will try to sell it themselves, or maybe they have like a tenant and the tenant wants to buy it and nobody's really sure. So I'll come in as a neutral third party and say, okay, here's what it's worth.
Okay.
And then they come to an agreement that way.
Awesome.
So I do a lot of that stuff. So 75% of my work's private.
Interesting.
Which I like.
Yeah.
And even the lenders that I use, I don't do. Over the years, I've kind of weaned off mortgage brokers. So I don't really do that much. I do just local credit unions and banks.
Okay.
And they're great.
Yeah.
Just because they want real numbers. They don't pressure me in any way. A lot of some of these mortgage guys will pressure you to come in with a number. And if you don't come up with that number, if you start killing some deals of theirs,
right,
they'll cut you off.
Wow.
Say, I would find somebody else.
Yeah.
Although over the years, that has really subsided a lot because after the 2008 crash,
right,
that's when the appraisal management companies came into being to be like a buffer between the appraiser and the loan officer.
Right.
Because back in the day, oh man, these loan officers would call you and they would always promise you work.
Yeah.
Say, hey, I got a deal in your town, and if you can hit this number, I'll send it to you. And, if there's always more work.
Right. What are you going to do?
Well,
come in low and then not have any work? I mean, that's
I like to sleep at night.
Right. Exactly.
So usually I would just say, hey, look, you're going to pay me up front and I'm just going to appraise it for whatever it is.
There you go.
Usually I get a click.
Next guy.
Well, you can't do click with a cell phone anymore. But in the old-fashioned phones, you could slam it down. It was kind of cool, right? You have a little attitude, you could slam it.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
Do that.
It's nothing.
If people need more information, if they need your services for appraisals, how can people connect with you?
Just call me on my cell, 410-688-2532, or just go to Corson Residential Appraisers. Check me out.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dominic, This has been awesome, man.
Oh, man, Tim, it's been fun.
Thank you so much for joining us. If you've liked this episode, please feel free to share it. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We put the video portion up there. We're on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast. We are there, the TMA Connection. We are with Berkshire Hathaway PenFed Realty. And this has been one of those episodes that is just... there's so many knowledge bombs that's been dropped, and if you agree, please again do us the favor of sharing that. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at the Markland Advantage, on YouTube at the Markland Advantage, and we are on TikTok at TMA Real Estate.
Wow, they're everywhere.
Everywhere. Are you on TikTok, Dom?
Oh no. No, I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on whatever.
No. Okay. Well,
Facebook. I'm on Facebook, but
you're busy enough. You don't need that.
I really.
All right. Well, we're gonna clip this up, and we're gonna put some little 1-minute segments on TikTok and Reels and all that good stuff. So
cool.
Get the good word out. So thank you again for joining us today, Dominic. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Until next time, live your life to the fullest, and we'll see you soon. Take care.